Laos, Lao. Officially the Lao People's Democratic Republic Lao, Sathalan Latpaksathapatai Lao, is a socialist state and the only landlocked country in Southeast Asia. At the heart of the Indo-Chinese peninsula, Laos is bordered by Myanmar and China to the northwest, Vietnam to the east, Cambodia to the southeast and Thailand to the west and southwest. Present-day Laos traces its historic and cultural identity to Lan Xang, which existed from the 14th century to the 18th century as one of the largest kingdoms in Southeast Asia. Because of its central geographical location in Southeast Asia, the kingdom became a hub for overland trade and became wealthy economically and culturally. It is a one-party socialist republic, espousing Marxism-Leninism and governed by the Lao People's Revolutionary Party, under which non-governmental organizations have routinely characterized the country's human rights record as poor, citing repeated abuses such as torture, restrictions on civil liberties, and persecution of minorities. The politically and culturally dominant Lao people make up 53.2% of the population, mostly in the lowlands. Mon Khmer groups, the Hmong, and other indigenous hill tribes live in the foothills and mountains. Laos' strategies for development are based on generating electricity from rivers and selling the power to its neighbors, namely Thailand, China, and Vietnam, as well as its initiative to become a land-linked nation, as evidenced by the construction of 4 new railways connecting Laos and neighbors. Laos has been referred to as one of Southeast Asia and Pacific's fastest-growing economies by the World Bank, with annual GDP growth averaging 7.4% since 2009.
Etymology.
The English word Laos was coined by the French, who united the 3 Lao kingdoms in French Indochina in 1893 and named the country as the plural of the dominant and most common ethnic group, the Lao people. In the Lao language, the country's name is Muang Lao or Pathet Lao, both of which literally mean Lao country.
History. Prehistory and early history.
An ancient human skull was recovered in 2009 from the Tampaling cave in the Annamite Mountains in northern Laos. The skull is at least 46,000 years old, making it the oldest modern human fossil found to date in Southeast Asia. Stone artifacts including Hoban types have been found at sites dating to the late Pleistocene in northern Laos. Archaeological evidence suggests an agriculturist society developed during the 4th millennium BC. Burial jars and other kinds of sepulchres suggest a complex society in which bronze objects appeared around 1500 BC, and iron tools were known from 700 BC. The proto-historic period is characterized by contact with Chinese and Indian civilizations. According to linguistic and other historical evidence, Thai-speaking tribes migrated southwestward to the modern territories of Laos and Thailand from Guangxi sometime between the 8th and 10th centuries.
Lan Xang.
Laos traces its history to the kingdom of Lan Xang Million Elephants, which was founded in the 14th century by a Lao prince, Phan Gum, whose father had his family exiled from the Khmer Empire. Phan Gum, with 10,000 Khmer troops, conquered many Lao principalities in the Mekong River basin, culminating in the capture of Vientiane. Ngum was descended from a long line of Lao kings that traced back to Kandbalam. He made Theravada Buddhism a state religion, and Lan Xang prospered. His ministers, unable to tolerate his ruthlessness, forced him into exile to the present-day Thai province of Nan in 1373, where he died. Phan Gum's eldest son, Aun Huan, ascended to the throne under the name Samsnet Hai and reigned for 43 years. Lan Xang became an important trade center during Samsent Hai's reign, but after his death in 1421 it collapsed into warring factions for nearly a century. In 1520, Phataizeret came to the throne and moved the capital from Luang Prabang to Vientiane to avoid a Burmese invasion. Sethetheret became king in 1548, after his father was killed, and ordered the construction of what became the symbol of Laos, that Luang. Sethetheret disappeared in the mountains on his way back from a military expedition into Cambodia, and Lan Xang fell into more than 70 years of instability, involving both Burmese invasion and civil war. In 1637, when Sao Rignavongsa ascended the throne, Lan Xang further expanded its frontiers. His reign is often regarded as Laos's golden age. When he died without an heir, the kingdom split into three principalities. Between 1763 and 1769, Burmese armies overran northern Laos and annexed Luang Prabang. While Champasak eventually came under Siamese suzerainty, Jaon Vong was installed as a vassal king of Vientiane by the Siamese. He encouraged a renaissance of Lao fine arts and literature and improved relations with Luang Prabang. Under Vietnamese pressure, he rebelled against the Siamese in 1826. The rebellion failed, and Vientiane was ransacked. An Vong was taken to Bangkok as a prisoner, where he died. A Siamese military campaign in Laos in 1876 was described by a British observer as having been transformed into slave hunting raids on a large scale.
French Laos 1893 to 1953.
In the late 19th century, Luang Prabang was ransacked by the Chinese Black Flag Army. France rescued King Aun Kam and added Luang Prabang to the Protectorate of French Indochina. Shortly after, the Kingdom of Champasak and the territory of Vientiane were added to the Protectorate. King Sisavang Vong of Luang Prabang became ruler of a unified Laos, and Vientiane once again became the capital. Laos never held any importance for France other than as a buffer state between Thailand and the more economically important Annam and Tonkin. Laos produced tin, rubber, and coffee, but never accounted for more than 1% of French Indochina's exports. By 1940, around 600 French citizens lived in Laos. Under French rule, the Vietnamese were encouraged to migrate to Laos, which was seen by the French colonists as a rational solution to a labor shortage within the confines of an Indochina-wide colonial space. By 1943, the Vietnamese population stood at nearly 40,000, forming the majority in the largest cities of Laos and enjoying the right to elect its own leaders. As a result, 53% of the population of Vientiane, 85% of Thakek, and 62% of Pax were Vietnamese, with only the exception of Luang Prabang where the population was predominantly Lao. On the 9th of March 1945, a nationalist group declared Laos once more independent, with Luang Prabang as its capital. But on the 7th of April 1945 2 battalions of Japanese troops occupied the city. The Japanese attempted to force Sisavang Vong, the king of Luang Prabang, to declare Laotian independence. But on the 8th of April he instead simply declared an end to Laos's status as a French protectorate. The king then secretly sent Prince Kinde Vong to represent Laos to the Allied forces and Prince Sisavang as representative to the Japanese.
Independence and Communist Rule 1953 present.
The First Indochina War took place across French Indochina and eventually led to French defeat and the signing of a peace accord for Laos at the Geneva Conference of 1954. In 1960, amidst a series of rebellions in the Kingdom of Laos, fighting broke out between the Royal Lao Army RLA and the Communist North Vietnamese and Soviet Union-backed Pathet Lao guerrillas. A second provisional government of national unity formed by Prince Suvarnabhumi in 1962 was unsuccessful, and the situation steadily deteriorated into large-scale civil war between the Royal Laotian government and the Pathet Lao. The Pathet Lao were backed militarily by the People's Army of Vietnam PAVN and the Viet Cong. Some 80 million bombs failed to explode and remain scattered throughout the country, rendering vast swaths of land impossible to cultivate and killing or maiming approximately 50 Laotians every year. Because of the particularly heavy impact of cluster bombs during this war, Laos was a strong advocate of the Convention on Cluster Munitions to ban the weapons and was host to the first meeting of states parties to the convention in November 2010. In 1975 the Pathet Lao overthrew the royalist government, forcing King Savangvathana to abdicate on the 2nd of December 1975. He later died under suspicious circumstances in a re-education camp. Between 20,000 and 62,000 Laotians died during the Civil War. The royalists set up a government in exile in the United States. On the 2nd of December 1975, after taking control of the country, the Pathet Lao government under Kasen Phom Vihain renamed the country as the Lao People's Democratic Republic and signed agreements giving Vietnam the right to station armed forces and to appoint advisors to assist in overseeing the country. The close ties between Laos and Vietnam were formalized via a treaty signed in 1977, which has since provided direction for Lao foreign policy, and provides the basis for Vietnamese involvement at all levels of Lao political and economic life. Laos was requested in 1979 by Vietnam to end relations with the People's Republic of China, leading to isolation in trade by China, the United States, and other countries. In 1979, there were 50,000 PAVN troops stationed in Laos and as many as 6,000 civilian Vietnamese officials, including 1,000 directly attached to the ministries in Vientiane. The conflict between Hmong rebels and Laos continued in key areas of Laos, including in Se Sabaon Closed Military Zone, Se Zambaon Closed Military Zone near Vientiane Province and Xiang Quang Province. From 1975 to 1996, the United States resettled some 250,000 Lao refugees from Thailand, including 130,000 Hmong.
Geography.
Laos is the only landlocked country in Southeast Asia, and it lies mostly between latitudes 14 degrees and 23 degrees north. A small area is south of 14 degrees, and longitudes 100 degrees and 108 degrees east. Its thickly forested landscape consists mostly of rugged mountains, the highest of which is Phu Biawat, with some plains and plateaus. The Mekong River forms a large part of the western boundary with Thailand, where the mountains of the Annamite Range form most of the eastern border with Vietnam and the Luang Prabang Range the northwestern border with the Thai Highlands. There are two plateaux, the Xiang Kloang in the north and the Bolaven Plateau at the southern end. Laos can be considered to consist of three geographical areas, north, central, and south. Laos had a 2019 Forest Landscape Integrity Index mean score of 5.59, ranking it 98th globally out of 172 countries. In 1993 the Laos government set aside 21% of the nation's land area for habitat conservation preservation. The country is one of four in the opium poppy growing region known as the Golden Triangle. According to the October 2007 UNODC fact book Opium Poppy Cultivation in Southeast Asia, the poppy cultivation area was down from in 2006.
Climate.
The climate is mostly tropical savanna and influenced by their monsoon pattern. There is a distinct rainy season from May to October, followed by a dry season from November to April. Local tradition holds that there are 3 seasons: rainy, cool and hot, as the latter 2 months of the climatologically defined dry season are noticeably hotter than the earlier 4 months. A new province, Ximbaon Province, was established on the 13th of December 2013. Provinces are further divided into districts Muang and then villages Ban. An urban village is essentially a town. The head of state is President Thong Loun Sai Solith. He has been General Secretary of the Lao People's Revolutionary Party, a position making him the de facto leader of Laos, since January 2021. Government policies are determined by the party through the all-powerful 11-member Politburo of the Lao People's Revolutionary Party and the 61-member Central Committee of the Lao People's Revolutionary Party. Laos's first French-written and monarchical constitution was promulgated on the 11th of May 1947, and declared Laos an independent state within the French Union. The revised constitution of the 11th of May 1957 omitted reference to the French Union, though close educational, health and technical ties with the former colonial power persisted. The 1957 document was abrogated in December 1975, when a Communist People's Republic was proclaimed. A new constitution was adopted in 1991 and enshrined a leading role for the LPRP. Laos also maintained a special relationship with Vietnam and formalized a 1977 Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation that created tensions with China. Laos's emergence from international isolation has been marked through improved and expanded relations with other nations such as Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, China, Turkey, Australia, France, Japan, and Sweden. Trade relations with the United States were normalized in November 2004 through Congress-approved legislation. Laos was admitted into the Association of Southeast Asian Nations (ASEAN) in July 1997 and acceded to the website www. Export. Gov access date the 23rd of May 2019. In 2005 it attended the inaugural East Asia Summit.
Military.
On the 17th of May 2014, Defense Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Dwang Chae-Phitchit was killed in a plane crash, along with other top-ranking officials. The officials were to participate in a ceremony to mark the liberation of the plane of jars from the former Royal Lao government forces. Their Russian-built Antonov An-74-300 with 20 people on board crashed in Xiangkhouang province.
Hmong conflict.
Some Hmong groups fought as CIA-backed units on the royalist side in the Laotian Civil War. After the Pathet Lao took over the country in 1975, the conflict continued in isolated pockets. In 1977, a communist newspaper promised the party would hunt down the American collaborators and their families to the last route. As many as 200,000 Hmong went into exile in Thailand, with many ending up in the US. Other Hmong fighters hid out in mountains in Xiangkhouang province for many years, with a remnant emerging from the jungle in 2003. Pressure to resettle the refugees grew as the Thai government worked to close its remaining refugee camps. While some Hmong people returned to Laos voluntarily, with development assistance from UNHCR, allegations of forced repatriation surfaced. Of those Hmong who did return to Laos, some quickly escaped back to Thailand, describing discrimination and brutal treatment at the hands of Lao authorities. In 1993, Vu Mai, a former Hmong soldier and leader of the largest Hmong refugee camp in Thailand, who had been recruited by the U.S. Embassy in Bangkok to return to Laos as proof of the repatriation program's success, disappeared in Vientiane. According to the U.S. Committee for Refugees, he was arrested by Lao security forces and was never seen again. Following the Vu Mai incident, debate over the Hmong's planned repatriation to Laos intensified greatly, especially in the United States, where it drew strong opposition from many American conservatives and some human rights advocates. In a 23 October 1995 National Review article, Michael Johns, the former Heritage Foundation foreign policy expert and Republican White House aide, labeled the Hmong's repatriation a Clinton administration betrayal, describing the Hmong as a people who have spilled their blood in defense of American geopolitical interests. Debate on the issue escalated quickly. In an effort to halt the planned repatriation, the Republican-led U.S. Senate and House of Representatives both appropriated funds for the remaining Thailand-based Hmong to be immediately resettled in the United States. Clinton, however, responded by promising a veto of the legislation. In their opposition of the repatriation plans, Democratic and Republican members of Congress challenged the Clinton administration's position that the government of Laos was not systematically violating Hmong human rights. U.S. Representative Steve Gunderson, for instance, told a Hmong gathering, "I do not enjoy standing up and saying to my government that you are not telling the truth, But if that is necessary to defend truth and justice, I will do that. Thousands of Hmong people refused to return to Laos in 1996 as the deadline for the closure of Thai refugee camps approached, and under mounting political pressure, the United States agreed to resettle Hmong refugees who passed a new screening process. Around 5,000 Hmong people who were not resettled at the time of the camp closures sought asylum at Wat Tam Kra Bok, a Buddhist monastery in central Thailand where more than 10,000 Hmong refugees had already been living. The Thai government attempted to repatriate these refugees, but the Wat Tam Kra Bok Hmong refused to leave and the Lao government refused to accept them, claiming they were involved in the illegal drug trade and were of non-Lao origin. Following threats of forcible removal by the Thai government, the United States, in a significant victory for the Hmong, agreed to accept 15,000 of the refugees in 2003. Several thousand Hmong people, fearing forced repatriation to Laos if they were not accepted for resettlement in the United States, fled the camp to live elsewhere within Thailand where a sizable Hmong population has been present since the 19th century. In 2004 and 2005, thousands of Hmong fled from the jungles of Laos to a temporary refugee camp in the Thai province of Phetchabun, lending further support to earlier claims that the government of Laos was persecuting the Hmong. Filmmaker Rebecca Sommer documented first-hand accounts in her documentary, Hunted Like Animals, and in a comprehensive report that includes summaries of refugee claims and was submitted to the UN in May 2006. The European Union, UNHCR, and international groups have since spoken out about the forced repatriation. The Thai Foreign Ministry has said that it will halt deportation of Hmong refugees held in detention centres in Nong Khai, while talks are underway to resettle them in Australia, Canada, the Netherlands and the United States. Plans to resettle additional Hmong refugees in the United States were stalled by provisions of President George W. Bush's Patriot Act and date equals the 11th of October 2011 website equals Human Rights Watch access date equals the 23rd of May 2019. In The Economist's Democracy Index 2016, Laos was classified as an authoritarian regime, ranking lowest of the 9 ASEAN nations included in the study. Prominent civil society advocates, human rights defenders, political and religious dissidents, and Hmong refugees have disappeared at the hands of Lao military and security forces. Ostensibly, the Constitution of Laos that was promulgated in 1991 and amended in 2003 contains most key safeguards for human rights. For example, Article 8 makes it clear that Laos is a multinational state and is committed to equality between ethnic groups. The Constitution also contains provisions for gender equality, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom of press and assembly. On the 25th of September 2009, Laos ratified the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 9 years after signing the treaty. The stated policy objectives of both the Lao government and international donors remain focused upon achieving sustainable economic growth and poverty reduction. However, the government of Laos frequently breaches its own constitution and the rule of law, since the judiciary and judges are appointed by the ruling Communist Party, according to independent non-profit/non-governmental organizations NGOs such as Amnesty International, and civil rights defenders, along with the U.S. State Department. Serious human rights violations such as arbitrary detentions, disappearances, free speech restrictions, prison abuses and other violations are an ongoing problem. Amnesty International raised concerns about the ratification record of the Lao government on human rights standards and its lack of cooperation with the UN human rights mechanisms and legislative measures. Both impact negatively upon human rights. In October 1999, 30 young people were arrested for attempting to display posters calling for peaceful economic, political and social change in Laos. 5 of them were arrested and subsequently sentenced to up to 10 years imprisonment on charges of treason. They were to have been released by October 2009, but their whereabouts remain unknown. In late February 2017, 2 of those imprisoned were finally released after 17 years. Laos and Vietnamese SRV troops were reported to have raped and killed 4 Christian Hmong women in Xiang Quang province in 2011, according to the US-based non-governmental public policy research organization the Center for Public Policy Analysis, which also said other Christian and independent Buddhist and animist believers were being persecuted. Human rights advocates including Vang Pob Zeb, Kerry, and Kay Danes, and others have also raised concerns about human rights violations, torture, the arrest and detention of political prisoners as well as the detention of foreign prisoners in Laos including at the infamous language =N. Laos is an origin country for sexually trafficked persons. A number of citizens, primarily women and girls from all ethnic groups and foreigners, have been victims of sex trafficking in Laos.
Economy.
In 2016, China was the biggest foreign investor in Laos's economy, having invested in $395 billion since 1989, according to Laos Ministry of Planning and Investment's 1989 to 2014 report. Thailand invested $489 billion and Vietnam invested $108 billion are the second and third largest investors respectively. The economy receives development aid from the International Monetary Fund, Asian Development Bank, and other international sources, and also foreign direct investment for development of the society, industry, hydropower and mining most notably of copper and gold. Subsistence agriculture still accounts for half of the GDP and provides 80% of employment. Only 4% of the country is arable land and a mere 0.3% used as permanent cropland, the lowest percentage in the Greater Mekong sub-region. The irrigated areas under cultivation account for only 28% of the total area under cultivation which, in turn, represents only 12% of all of the agricultural land in 2012. Rice dominates agriculture, with about 80% of the arable land area used for growing rice. Approximately 77% of Lao farm households are self-sufficient in rice. Laos may have the greatest number of rice varieties in the Greater Mekong sub-region. The Lao government has been working with the International Rice Research Institute of the Philippines to collect seed samples of each of the thousands of rice varieties found in Laos. Laos is rich in mineral resources and imports petroleum and gas. Metallurgy is an important industry, and the government hopes to attract foreign investment to develop the substantial deposits of coal, gold, bauxite, tin, copper, and other valuable metals. The mining industry of Laos has received prominent attention with foreign direct investments. This sector has made significant contributions to the economic condition of Laos. More than 540 mineral deposits of gold, copper, zinc, lead and other minerals have been identified, explored and mined. In addition, the country's plentiful water resources and mountainous terrain enable it to produce and export large quantities of hydroelectric energy, of the potential capacity of approximately 18,000 megawatts, around 8,000 megawatts have been committed for export to Thailand and Vietnam. As of 2021, despite cheap hydropower available in the country, Laos continues to also rely on fossil fuels, coal in particular, in the domestic electricity production. In 2018, the country ranked 139th on the Human Development Index (HDI), indicating medium development. According to the Global Hunger Index 2018, Laos ranks as the 36th hungriest nation in the world out of the list of the 52 nations with the worst hunger situations. In 2019, the UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights conducted an official visit to Laos and found that the country's top-down approach to economic growth and poverty alleviation is all too often counterproductive, leading to impoverishment and jeopardizing the rights of the poor and marginalized. The country's most widely recognized product may well be beer Lao, which in 2017 was exported to more than 20 countries worldwide. It is produced by the Lao Brewery Company.
Tourism.
The tourism sector has grown rapidly, from 80,000 international visitors in 1990 to 1. $876 million in 2010, when tourism had been expected to rise to $1 $5,857 billion by 2020. In 2010, 1 in every 11 jobs was in the tourism sector. Export earnings from international visitors and tourism goods are expected to generate 16% of total exports, or $270 $3 million in 2010, growing in nominal terms to $484 $2 million 5% of the total in 2020. The European Council on Trade and Tourism awarded the country the World Best Tourist Destination designation for 2013 for architecture and history. Luang Prabang and Wat Phu are both UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Major festivals include Lao New Year, celebrated around 13 to 15 April and involves a water festival similar but more subdued than that of Thailand and other Southeast Asian countries. The Lao National Tourism Administration, related government agencies and the private sector are working together to realize the vision put forth in the country's National Ecotourism Strategy and Action Plan. This includes decreasing the environmental and cultural impact of tourism, increasing awareness in the importance of ethnic groups and biological diversity, providing a source of income to conserve, sustain and manage the Lao Protected Area Network and cultural heritage sites, and emphasizing the need for tourism zoning and management plans for sites that will be developed as ecotourism destinations.
Infrastructure.
The main international airports are Vientiane's Wat Ai International Airport and Luang Prabang International Airport, with Pax International Airport also having a few international flights. The national carrier is Lao Airlines. Other carriers serving the country include Bangkok Airways, Vietnam Airlines, AirAsia, Thai Airways, and China Eastern Airlines. Much of Laos lacks adequate infrastructure. Laos railways include a short link to connect Vientiane with Thailand over the Thai-Lao Friendship Bridge, and a short portage railway, the Dond-Donkan narrow gauge railway built by the French in Dond and Donkan in Champasak province. It has been closed since the 1940s. In the late 1920s, work began on the Thakek Tan Ap railway that would have run between Thakek, Cam Wan province and Dan P station in Vietnam through the MGI Pass. The scheme was aborted in the 1930s. Announced in 2015, a 414-kilometer high-speed rail line linking Kunming, in the southern Chinese province of Yunnan, with the Laotian capital of Vientiane is about 90% completed as of November 2020. The track is being laid, and the line is expected to be operational sometime in 2022. The major roads connecting the major urban centers, in particular Route 13, have been significantly upgraded in recent years, but villages far from major roads can be reached only through unpaved roads that may not be accessible year-round. There is limited external and internal telecommunication, but mobile phones have become widespread. 93% of households have a telephone, either fixed line or mobile. Laos has made particularly noteworthy progress increasing access to sanitation. Laos's predominantly rural population makes investing in sanitation difficult. In 1990 only 8% of the rural population had access to improved sanitation.
Demographics.
The term Laotian does not necessarily refer to the Lao language, ethnic Lao people, language or customs. It is a political term that includes the non-ethnic Lao groups within Laos and identifies them as Laotian because of their political citizenship. Laos has the youngest population of any country in Asia with a median age of 21.6 years. Laos's population was estimated at 7.45 million in 2020, dispersed unevenly across the country. Most people live in valleys of the Mekong River and its tributaries. Vientiane Prefecture, the capital and largest city, had about 683,000 residents in 2020. The Lao belong to the Thai linguistic group who began migrating south from China in the first millennium CE. 10% belong to other lowland groups, which together with the Lao people make up the Lao Lum lowland people. Anti-minorities remain, particularly in the towns, but many left after independence in the late 1940s, many of whom relocated either to Vietnam, Hong Kong, or to France. Lao Thang constitute about 30% of the population. Hill people and minority cultures of Laos such as the Hmong, Yao Min Hmong Min, Dao, Shan, and several Tibeto-Burman-speaking peoples have lived in isolated regions of Laos for many years. Mountain, hill tribes of mixed ethno-cultural linguistic heritage are found in northern Laos, which include the Liu and Khmer people who are indigenous to Laos. Collectively, they are known as Laosang or Highland Laotians. Laosang account for about 10% of the population. Languages like Khmu Austroasiatic and Hmong Min are spoken by minorities, particularly in the Midland and Highland areas. A number of Laotian Sign Languages are used in areas with high rates of congenital deafness. English, the language of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations (ASEAN), has become increasingly studied in recent years.
Religion.
66% of Laotians were Theravada Buddhist, 1.5% Christian, 0.1% Muslim, 0.1% Jewish, and 32.3% were other or traditional, mostly practitioners of Satsnify in 2010. Healthy life expectancy was 54 years in 2007. Government expenditure on health is about 4% of GDP. In 2004 the net primary enrollment rate was 84%.
Culture.
Theravada Buddhism is a dominant influence in Lao culture. It is evident throughout the country, expressed in language, temples and the arts and literature. Many elements of Lao culture predate Buddhism. For example, Laotian music is dominated by its national musical instrument, the can, a type of bamboo mouth organ that has prehistoric origins. The can traditionally accompanied the singer in morlam, the dominant style of folk music. Sticky rice is a staple food and has cultural and religious significance to the Lao people. Sticky rice is generally preferred over jasmine rice, and sticky rice cultivation and production is thought to have originated in Laos. There are many traditions and rituals associated with rice production in different environments and among many ethnic groups. For example, Camu farmers in Luang Prabang plant the rice variety cow cam in small quantities near the farmhouse in memory of dead parents, or at the edge of the rice field to indicate that parents are still alive. The shine is a traditional garment worn by Lao women in daily life. It is a hand-woven silk skirt that can identify the woman who wears it in a variety of ways.
Cinema.
Since the founding of the Lao PDR in 1975, very few films have been made in Laos. The first feature-length film made after the monarchy was abolished is Gun Voice from the Plain of Jars, directed by Somchith Phulsana in 1983, although its release was prevented by a censorship board. One of the first commercial feature-length films was Sabadi Luang Prabang, made in 2008. The 2017 documentary feature film Blood Road was predominantly shot and produced in Laos with assistance from the Lao government. It was recognized with a News and Documentary Emmy Award in 2018. Australian filmmaker Kim Mordaunt's first feature film was made in Laos and features a Laotian cast speaking their native language. Entitled The Rocket, the film appeared at the 2013 Melbourne International Film Festival and won 3 awards at the Berlin International Film Festival. One production company's film that has succeeded to produce Lao feature films and gain international recognition is Lao New Wave Cinemas at the Horizon, directed by Anais Kiola, that was screened at the Ausasia Film Festival, and Lao Art Media's Chanthali Lao, directed by Matty Du, which was screened at the 2013 Fantastic Fest. In September 2017, Laos submitted Dearest Sister Lao, Matty Du's second feature film, to the 90th Academy Awards or the Oscars for consideration for Best Foreign Language Film, marking the country's first submission for the Oscars. As of 2018, Laos has 3 operating theaters dedicated to showing films.
Festivals.
There are some public holidays, festivities and ceremonies in Laos. Hmong New Year Nope Jiao Bun Fawet Magha Puja Chinese New Year Baun Kaun Kao Baun Pai Mai Visaka Puja Pai Mai I, Song Kran Lao New Year Kao Fanza Hawk Kao Padaptin Ork Fanza Bun Nama Lao National Day the 2nd of December.
Media.
All newspapers are published by the government, including 2 foreign language papers, the English language daily Vientiane Times and the French language weekly Le Renovateur. Additionally, the Khao San Pathet Lao, the country's official news agency, publishes English and French versions of its eponymous paper. Laos has 9 daily newspapers, 90 magazines, 43 radio stations, and 32 TV stations operating throughout the country. Nhan Dan The People and the Xinhua News Agency are the only foreign media organizations permitted to open offices in Laos. Both opened bureaus in Vientiane in 2011. The Lao government controls all media channels to prevent critique of its actions. Lao citizens who have criticized the government have been subjected to enforced disappearances, arbitrary arrests and torture.
Polygamy.
Polygamy is officially a crime in Laos, though the penalty is minor. The Constitution and Family Code bar the legal recognition of polygamous marriages, stipulating that monogamy is the principal form of marriage in the country. Polygamy, however, is still customary among some Hmong people. Only 3.5% of women and 2.1% of men between the ages of 15 to 49 were in a polygynous union as of 2017. Is a form of kickboxing similar to Thailand's Muay Thai, Burmese Lethwai, and Cambodian Pradal Serui. Association football is the most popular sport in Laos. The Lao League is the top professional league for association football clubs in the country. Since the start of the league, Lao Army FC has been the most successful club with 8 titles, the highest number of championship wins. Laos has no tradition in other team sports. In 2017, the country sent a team for the first time to the team events at the Southeast Asian Games. The national basketball team competed at the 2017 Southeast Asian Games where it beat Myanmar in the 8th place game.